Hi guys, welcome to my second video for the Dota DPC 2022 Fantasy roster. And the reason that I'm making this second video just hours before the DPC Division 1 starts is because I'm really excited to make some predictions for the upcoming Season 1. Currently, for every region, I think there are some hot takes that we can make for each region. And so in this video, what I'm going to do is to give you my exciting predictions for each region, telling you which team I think will perform well, perform beyond expectations, and perhaps even any team or any player that you can look out for to score fantasy points. We'll see whether these play out according to my predictions or if things go differently. Either way, whether it follows my prediction or whether it's totally different, both would be exciting. So without further ado, let me start off with North America. In North America, the 8 teams that we have here, among them, my hot prediction would be this, that Undying may be the most likely team to dominate the whole region, perhaps even more than Evil Genius. Undying had always had a solid performance even in the previous DPC, and at TI they performed quite well, surprisingly beating certain teams that you would not expect them to beat, and even perform better than Evil Geniuses. I would say that Evil Geniuses is also a hot contender for the number 1 place, and they will probably at least be 2nd place. The reason that I say this is that even though Nightfall and Jarex joined the team, and they're not playing their usual role, and Evil Genius are having some roster changes, I do think that Nightfall is a player that has potential as an offlaner because he picked beefy heroes like BB and Dawnbreaker when he was in TI. And Jarex is just a crazy good player in his game sense for supporting and roaming, and based on some of his recent pub videos, even though he hasn't played for a while, he still has not lost the magic when it comes to turning the game around and supporting even in the position 5 role. So I would say Undying might be number 1, then Evil Genius, and Quincy Crew may probably be number 3, but we'll wait and see about that. Based on this order, I would say that it is pretty good to continue to look out to put Duwu and Brown for your fantasy roster, as they have been consistent scorers. And for Evil Geniuses, consistent scorers are Abed and Arthur. We'll have to take a look and wait and see more whether Creed and Jarex are also good scorers. Now, moving on to the next region, South America. In South America, this is probably the region that I'm least certain about. The Thunder Predator is the old no ping, and Lava is the old Thunder Predator. I think SGE Sport came back to SGE Sport became the new no ping, yes. So Beast Coast is still Beast Coast. And I think Beast Coast, although they were a bit shaky in TI, they showed that they were formidable. They were not even too depressed, even though they didn't get a high placing at TI. So my hot take would be that Beast Coast will be the number 1 that dominate the region in the first season. We'll wait and see about that. Now I'll talk about the other regions because I have more to say about them. Western Europe. I would say that Western Europe is the most stacked region where there are the most powerful teams to look out for at the moment. Among them, the 6 most exciting teams to look out for are Liquid, Alliance, Secret, OG, Tundra, and Nigma. Nigma roster didn't change. Tundra roster didn't change. The other 4 teams here had their roster changed, OG having a total new revamp. But here's my hot take. I think that Team Secret would likely be number 1, and Tundra would be number 2, OG will be number 3, Nigma number 4, followed by Alliance and Liquid. The reason that I think that Secret will have a good placing is that their team is made up of veteran players. Yapzor began to play better and better at TI together with Nisha and Papi, where Team Secret began to find their form at this previous year TI. Nisha is back to the role that he originally plays, which is position 1, and Sumir is back to the role he originally plays, which is position 2. With a team that is full of veterans, that doesn't mind to have creativity, that doesn't mind to throw, and all have good knowledge of the game, I think that they have a solid chance to consistently perform well and take games. As for Tundra, you may ask why is Tundra number 2 on my list. I would say that don't sleep on Tundra. Even though they only began to show up in the previous season, they started to show up by dominating almost everyone. OG almost lost to Tundra in a whole 5-game series to qualify, and subsequently Tundra even beat every other team including PSG LGD in the ESL 1-4. Tundra shows solid performance, solid innovation, such as off-laner who micros and a mid-laner who plays quarter. I think that this team has a lot of motivation and a lot to prove, and they are here to do that. So in third place, why would it be OG instead of Nigma or the other teams? I say OG because even though their roster is totally new, all these 5 players are very exciting to watch. Taiga is without a doubt already a notable position 4. Misha is shown to be a great coach and shown to have great understanding of the game, and even in the show match between OG and Beast Coast, Misha played out of his mind as a position 5 snap that even got many kills and made a lot of impact. I think that with the guidance of Misha and Taiga, these 3 other new players, BZM, Uraki and ATF, have shown themselves in the pubs to be very innovative, very daring and very skillful. They look like a new generation of OG that resembles the previous OG a lot, with high skills, with friendship, with creativity, with the young blood. And so even though their performance may be shaky and unpredictable, I think that they have the potential to possibly even place first in the whole region if they play out of their minds. We'll see. I think that Nigma, together with keeping their current roster, will no matter what do pretty well in this season, and that's why I put them at the 4th. So we'll see whether Team Secret and Tundra tops, and if OG and Nigma are closely behind. Now for Eastern Europe, you may say, what is there to predict for Eastern Europe? Wouldn't Team Spirit just be number 1? I would say no, not necessarily, and this is my hot take. Team Spirit was never dominating the region in the previous 2 seasons. The ones they dominated were Virtus.pro, or rather it was Virtus.pro all the way, and Navi wasn't too far behind. However, BP and Navi did have some changes in their rosters, so we will not be sure how they perform this time. But even though Team Spirit won the TI, I would say that they may not necessarily dominate, because if you look at the other teams down the list, Hellraiser, Unique, Park Cheng, AS, Monasco, Gambit, there are some teams in this list that you have to watch for. 2 of them is Hellraisers and Team Empire, which you may not have heard before. Team Empire was the team that almost qualified to TI if not for Team Spirit. They meet Team Spirit at the grand finals of the qualifier and were slightly short of qualifying. And If you look at Team Empire, they actually made it to many of the previous TIs, even though I did not heard much about them. As such, Team Empire could end up dominating and taking pretty many games in Eastern Europe. So don't be too quick to guess that Team Spirit will dominate this region. Eastern Europe is still pretty unpredictable to me. Now let's look at China. For China, we see many familiar team names: IG, LGD, B3, Aster, ING, eHome. But for most of these teams, there are roster changes except for PSG LGD. You may think LGD is just going to dominate the region, right? They stick together and they are motivated and they almost won TI. Well, I would say not necessarily the case. Yes, I may still put them as number 1, but I think that there are other teams that could be number 1. One of them is ING. Why? If you look at ING roster, they have 3 players who were in the old LGD in Tier 8 and Tier 9, Ex Nova, Chalice, and Somnus. I think that Somnus' motivation may not be clear right now, but when these 3 players unite, there is a chance that they may be more motivated and resemble the way that they dominated Tier 8 previously. If you look at their other support, Felix Xiaopa, Felix Xiaopa's heroes closely resemble FY's heroes: Nyx Assassin, Tasca, Rubik. As such, it's almost at least 4 out of 5 of these players who will likely play in a way that resembles the Tier 8 and Tier 9 LGD. Will that be good enough? We will wait and see. But I think that this team will perform better than when Somnus was in Elephant. Another team that I would say to look out for is Team Aster. Lenham is no longer one of the active players, but is now the coach. Lenham was a Force 5, he made some great plays, he had great understanding of the game, but some people did suggest that he should be a coach instead of a player because he's older. And so now he is the coach. The Team Aster roster didn't change by too much, and they even now have Ori as a mid laner. I would say that Ori is an upgrade to White Album, who was a fairly newer player, and Ori has shown to constantly win the mid lane, both at TI and in the region. So don't sleep on Team Aster. Team Aster dominated the China region in the past 2 seasons as well. It may not be LGD, but Aster and RNG who may be performing well. And if you want to look for some notable players with consistent performance for Fantasy, that would include Ori. Somnus is quite okay as well. You can also look to Emo in IG, and in LGD, Ame tends to never perform badly with how much he farms and then take towers. Lastly, let's look at Southeast Asia. You would notice that I have the most teams that I'm following in Southeast Asia, because Southeast Asia may possibly be the same competitive, maybe equally competitive to Western Europe. They have many stacked teams in this new DPC. Among them, which do you think I would put as the potential number 1? What do you think is T1? I initially thought that it may be T1, but I decided to change my guess to Fnatic. Fnatic had shaky performance in the past year, but with their new roster with Jonel and Armor added to the team, I would argue that they may perform during this new DPC and be number 1. DJ has always been an amazing player, and being in the position 5 role might have limited how much he could have done. Now that he's in the position 4 role, there may be more that he can do. I also heard that Japs is a multi-role player, now being the off lane may be good as well. Raven has always been consistently performing well, being able to farm even from behind. And from what I can see, Jonel and Armor are also amazing veteran players who are arguably good replacements in terms of better performance and better records compared to Trent and Dev, who were newer to the Dota competitive scene. As such, I think Fnatic is having a huge upgrade and they may be number one. Following closely would of course be T1, but I would say don't sleep on the other teams, SMG, Boom, and TNC. Boom recently won a competition and I think that they are looking solid. TNC introduced some new players to the whole Dota scene and also included Fabi into their roster. And I wouldn't say that we will know how TNC will do with their new players, but one of the new players that you can look out for, especially for fantasy, is Young God. Young God is their new carry, and even though we do not have much information about them, I saw through the average fantasy points that the other 4 players do not have much fantasy points in terms of kills and tower kills, and when the other 4 players have low kills and tower kills, what this usually means is that the carry on their team will have high kills and high tower kills, which is the most important fantasy point for the carry. As such, my hot take is that Young God may be one of the better performing players for fantasy, and you can try to take a bet to put Young God in. For Team SMG, I think that you have to watch out for them as well. All of their players are veterans. They seem to be slowly improving, even though sometimes they 3-2-2. And Mid1 was not as experienced as captain, but now that he has at least a year of experience, they may continue to improve. So with that, these are my predictions. To just quickly go through, I think that Undying may be the number 1 instead of Evil Genius in NA, Beast Host in South America, Team Secret in Western Europe, followed by Tundra and OG, and in Eastern Europe, do not be too quick to say Spirit, it may even be Empire or VP. And in China, I would say look out for Aster and RNG, they could be number 1, especially with RNG resembling the old LGD. And in Southeast Asia, look out for Fnatic. With their changes, they look like they are finally being upgraded compared to the last year. So with that, I hope you enjoy my hot takes, and I hope that this helps you in your predictions to know players to choose based on the teams that will probably do well. And with that, let's watch the new DPC, which is starting in an hour or 2. See you guys.